Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday night, and I can already tell that I have a lot of characters that I still have left to do before I can finish up the next two scenes for Deathwatch Hot Fuzz. So, rather than leave you empty-handed this weekend, what I'm going to do is I am going to see how much of Leslie Tiller's face that I can make in the next 90 minutes. Now, for time management, I use what's called the Pomodoro technique, which was invented by an Italian graduate student who was trying to finish his dissertation. And so he would time himself 25 minutes of highly focused work, followed by a quick 5-minute break for a bathroom, refresh the drink, etc., etc. So that is what I'm going to use. I'm going to do 3 Pomodoros tonight. And we are going to make the face of Anne Reid here, who is played, not Anne Reid, Leslie Tiller, who is played by Anne Reid. Excellently. However, we're not going to do an exact copy of Anne Reid's face, of course, because it is rude to do a caricature of someone without their permission. But we do like to have references of her on there, just kind of how she, the color of her face, the general shape, her hairstyle, and things like that to help us build something that we can animate. So, I've got a playlist going, which y'all can't hear because copyright. I've got a drink. I don't need to use the restroom. I'm ready to start. I got my stopwatch here. So 25 minutes. Here we go. The way I like to start with is the left eye. So let's create a new layer here, and we're going to call that eyelid. Go to style. I like to go just off of white with a width of 1.5 for my characters. Start drawing here. Looking at Anne's face, I think her eyes kind of favor the upper part of the arc, like right here. So that's what we're going to use as a guideline to decide the shape of her eye. And I like a character's eyes to be a little bit bigger. Let me see, turn off autofill, auto stroke here. A little bit larger than they are in real life, just because you're animating, they need to be expressive. Now I've got the outline here. Do I want to do anything? I want to add a little crease there. And that's probably good. So we'll go with select all, Control A to select all, create, hit both. All right. Now we go back to our selectors. Let's see here. We want to round her eye off, of course. So we use the F key, this tool right here. Let's round it off. Since this was the second to last point that I drew, I have to do the Bezier curves manually. I'm going to hit F to do my line thickness, and we're going to adjust this one down a bit. Let's round it off a little bit. Let's add a little asymmetry. There we go. That's pretty good. Let's see. Now, let's break that point, because the interior of the eye when you draw a cartoon character tends to be a lot thinner. So let's thin out these two. Do this one to about 50%. This one to about 50%. All right, let's do this one to about 75. And Leslie Tiller's not a happy character, so if her face looks a little bit sad, that's okay. Now we create, let's group with selection, because this is going to be multiple layers. So this we're going to call left eye. All right, let's open that up, go to masking, go to switch to hide all. Hide all acts like a canvas, so the eyelid itself, it's got the plus sign on the eyelid. That means it's been added to the mask, and this little yin-yang symbol means that the left eye is a masked layer. We're going to exclude strokes because we don't want the iris to overlap with the strokes, because the iris is going to have some color. Now for the hard part, I got to figure out what color Leslie's eyes are. I'd say she's got pretty dark eyes. Also, let's move the center here of this layer. All right, add a new vector. For this, we're going to call this the iris. Let's see, the fill is going to be straight black. The stroke, I'd say Leslie has kind of darkish eyes. I'm going to give her a little more green than she probably really has. A little more green. Not too much green. There we go. Let's boost the width to about 2.5, and we are drawing a circle, stroke, and fill it turned on. Zip. And people's kind of default pose for the eyes is usually just underneath the top eyelid. That looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to add one more thing, and it is a tiny reflection. And we only want about 60% opacity for this, and this is going to give the eye a little bit of depth. We're going to do another circle. We're going to go full white though. Turn auto stroke off. Right there, so you can see the iris through this reflection. And we're going to hit Control R. That's a pretty good eye. And just so this background here I found online somewhere. It's just a good guideline for general face proportions. So easy to find. All right, now we're happy with the left eye. Let's make a right eye. So first we want to adjust the center of the left eye because we're going to be moving that around a bit. And we hit this button to make it copy, and we're going to name this right eye. Oops. And now we flip the right eye, drag it over. Now it wouldn't make sense for the reflections of both eyes to be to the inside, so we're going to take this and we're going to move it over so that they're both on the same side. There we go. Leslie has two eyes. Nice. Okay. Next thing that I like to add usually is the nose, and the nose I typically put... we're going to call this the nose outline because I tend to apply some shading. I was actually experimenting, if you saw my fan art of Karen from Street Fighter. And what's neat about this is we can sample directly from Leslie's face here. Leslie's... That's kind of a bright area. Let's go for kind of a more reddish area. There we go. Stroke back to black. Width of 1.5 again. I like 1.5 for a character that's shaded. 1.5 is really good. All right. So we start with the crown of the nose. And Leslie's nose, fairly curved. And kind of slopes inward a bit, so she does kind of have what I call a chevron-ish nose, where it makes more sense to bring it to a point rather than to a curve. Bring that in a little bit, and that in. Round this off, round the outer edges off. And it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetric, but women are typically drawn with thinner noses, but this is kind of more caricature. Let's disappear some of these. So as her face turns left and right, her nose is actually going to overlap with her eyes a bit. Let's go back to line width, drop that one down to 0, that one down to 0, and this one to 50. And this one to 50. Let's add a little curvature. Let's make it a little narrower in the middle too. I think that's a bit thick. There we go. I think that's a bit better. All right. So once again, group with selection. We'll just call this straight up nose. And it's another masking layer. Hide all, apply, nose outline, exclude strokes. Okay. So create a new layer inside of here, and we go hide darks for highlights and dark lights. And let's set the center here. This helps later on when we actually start to move the face left, right, up, and down. So we want to take her original color and we want to brighten it a bit for the highlight. And the highlights, I think for her highlight, we're just going to go with a simple rhombus. And if you hear a loud noise, let's see, we only want fill for this. Yeah, there we go. And we want to add a blur of about 0.5. And I'm going to render this. You're not going to be able to see it very well. Her eyes are a little crossed now that we have the nose in. So let's go to left iris out slightly, right iris Out slightly. Rid of that again. That's better for a natural front-facing pose. All right, back to high darks. Let's add... Generally, I like to add a shader kind of to the bottom of the nose. So let's go sample her nose again. And let's make this a little darker. Not a lot darker, but a little darker. And let's see here. Fill that. And you notice the mask restricts the visible part of the shader to what is defined underneath it by the nose outline. Hit render again. So now let's bump the blur radius up to 1. Another render. That's pretty good. Okay. And what's cool is as I rotate her nose to make her look left and right, the shader can be moved as well to give it a hint of extra depth. Take a quick sip of wine. Now, I'm going to do a huge cheat here. Oh, first thing definitely save. Leslie is technically classified as an extra. This is Leslie Tiller A. And as I increment through, once I finish her face, that's Leslie Tiller A. Face with bones is Leslie Tiller B, etc., etc. And this is really important because if Moho develops an error... All right, let's see. Let's import my object. And this has been a big time saver for me. Lips female, mouth. That's a bit big. We don't want her to look too Joker-like. This is my default mouth. And it can do so... It's just the best thing that I've done in a long time. And it has like functional teeth. Her tongue can reach up to the top of her lip, and it can make all kinds of. It can make her corners go in and out. I can round them to make it a little more like an O shape, and also it can rotate so that when her face rotates. So yes, technically I'm really cheating here, but if you make one of these are incredibly useful. A default mouth. I also have a male mouth, which I use for a lot of characters too. All right, we got the eyes, nose, ears, so let's do a face outline. Mouth. Oh, before we do that though, she needs eyebrows. Eyebrows should stay above the nose because they're very expressive. Technically that's not realistic. All right. So Leslie here, we're going to use kind of a medium shade of her hair. And we're going to use a darker shade of her hair for the outline, like so. All right. And Leslie, she's got pretty mild, pretty light eyebrows. So what we're going to do, let's bring that in just a little. She has a friendly face, so do fill. Oh, I forgot to turn the stroke on for that. All right, let's shrink the outer edge down to about 30. And these middle edges, I'd say to about 60. Let's render that. That's pretty good. Her hair color is a little close to her skin tone, so I may adjust that in a little bit. And once we're happy with an eyebrow, we can copy it and move it over to the other side. Okay. Now onto the face outline. Let's think about the defining features of Leslie's face. I'd say, well, she's smiling here, so her cheeks are going out a little bit wider. But for the general outline, let's sample her nose again because it's going to be that same color, and we want black. I'm just asking myself, do I want to do something different with her chin? No, I don't think so. Leslie kind of has a general round face, so we start from the middle. We're going to go outside of we're going to cut off parts of our normal outline. From the top of the cheekbone to the top of the temple, 4 points. And then up here. And let's round these out a little bit. even if you aren't planning to keep them curved, always round out your straight edges anyway, just a little bit. Connect that one there and connect this one here. Now, not that we're going to be able to see the top of her head, but I like... Oh, and before we go too much further, this has to be brought in just a little bit. There we go. Doing pretty good on time. All right, let's make that a figure. Be sure to set that for both. Blop. That's pretty good. It looks terrible now because, again, it's not shaded. All right, let's see. Let's add some shading to Leslie's face. And once again, enable masking. I have a tutorial on masking. Always remember to hit apply when transitioning from layer to layer. Exclude strokes. I'm done with layers, so I can just hit OK. Let's see. Now we add a layer within this group. Shading. I am far from a master of shading. We can sample the shade color from her nose. Turn autofill on. Okay, let's see. What shading defines Leslie Tiller's face? She does not have a lot of dark spots around her eyes or anything, but it's good to have those anyway. We'll get to that. Well, we'll start with... Everyone has a little shadow underneath their chin. And just kind of how it happens. All right, so let's see. Let's do some nose shading here. Everyone needs a little nose shading in their life. Now, one thing you can do with nose shading is you can actually kind of extend it outward to form like the shading of a cheekbone. Slide this over here. Let's move these in just a little bit. Okay, round things off. And as with the nose, we're going to set the blur radius for 1. I'm not liking this shape very much. Let's narrow off her jawline just a little bit. It's a little too square. There we go. That's a little better. All right, let's go back to our shading process. Eye shading. As I said, Leslie doesn't have incredibly pronounced shading around her eyes. And when you shade a pleasant face, you want the shading to be round. We can delete that one. The shading to be kind of round because it makes the face, makes the skull a little less pronounced, makes the face a little friendlier. And we can copy this over to the other side here. Maybe not quite so high. Recording makes my mouse really twitchy, so this is slowing me down just a little bit. All right, let's do another quick render. That's a bit better. That's a bit better. Okay, now we add some shading to the outer edges of her cheeks and her face. So we go like this. And it's okay to break the outline here because as her head would turn, We can draw this, we can move this shading separately from the rest of her face. All right. And as I've said before, even if you like, even if a point is a part of a straight line, always consider adding a little bit of curvature to it anyway. Ah, that's pretty good. I should record myself doing this more often. Leslie's actually coming along really well. Let's drop that down just a hair. Proportions seem a little off, but that's not unheard of. And my default button for render is Control R. Yours may be different. I do have another tutorial where I talk about how I use very non-standard hotkeys. So if it feels like I'm going really fast, it's because I kind of am. All right, do we want to do anything with Leslie's cheeks? Let's add just a touch of red, I think. Just a touch. To migrate this, oh, that's way too far. Way too far. Just a touch of red. And this would follow kind of the contour of the shading there. Let's render that, see how we're happy. A little less pronounced. A little less pronounced. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Copy and paste. Flip the side. There we are. Right. I'm actually really far along on this. Now for the hard part, though, is her hair. Okay. Hair I tend to have to do in 4 parts. One is the hair that's visible from the front, which is very deformable, and it has to be very deformable so that as her head turns left and right, it works better. Now would also be a really good time to add a little more brown. So it's a little more color, so it's slightly less blatantly flesh toned here. There we go. Test render. Yeah, I think I like that pretty good. All right, hair front. We want to darken the outline a little bit because there's also going to be shading in the hair, and you want shading to be able to create a shape. All right, Leslie's hair. We're going to do a simplified version of her hair where it kind of initially follows. This is just the hair front. And we're gonna give Leslie hair that covers her ears because I hate. Also, Leslie kind of has an asymmetric haircut. So let's do something different with that. I hate drawing ears. They aren't hard to draw, they're just like I finish a character and I'm like, oh wait, I gotta do the ears. Oh, that's a bit too tall. If it looks terrible, that's because it probably is. Oh, also the outline's not turned on. There we go, that's a little better. Add some curvature. This will help make her hairstyle appear a little more feminine. I hate doing hair. It's just impossible. All right. So let's add some depth to her hair by making it a group with selection. And since this is a group layer and not just a vector layer, I can give it the same name. Masking goes on. Exclude strokes. There we go. All right, so the area near the root, we're going to give a slightly darker shade. Ugh, I can already tell Leslie's just going to be terrible. Oh, Add another layer. Call it highlight and dark light. And as with all of our shading, we give it a blur of 1. Add some curvature. Yep, that gives her a hint of depth. And now we add some highlights. So we sample the original color, climb up a little bit, and do just a little bit of highlight near the top. Good. I'm going so fast at this, I should start recording these more often. I don't know, I said that already, but yeah, let's go to the edge there. Okay. That's pretty good for Leslie. Leslie has a hairband, I forgot about that. So how are we going to represent her hairband? Good question. I've actually done a character with a hairband before, and it's kind of complicated. Oh, that's my alarm. So I'm going to go on a 5-minute break. All right, I am back. Let me adjust my chair right quick, refresh my drink, run to the restroom, stretch my legs. All right, so first of all, we're going to make an executive decision. Since Leslie wears a headband, we're going to delete her hair front. Sometimes it's faster just to stop and reconsider doing something than to try and repair it. All right, so let's add her hairband. All right, so her hairband is kind of a darkish red-brown color. Let's sample that directly from her character picture here. So, a little more about the Pomodoro technique, since it's key to what we do here. Now a hairband, it doesn't have to follow the contour of her head perfectly. In fact, I kind of did that terribly. Select all of those, just the radius. A little more about the Pomodoro technique. If you decide to use it, remember the goal of Pomodoro is, the only goal you should set for your Pomodoros is a commitment to focused work. Don't tell yourself you're going to finish a face in 25 minutes or you're going to finish a paper in 25 minutes, because that's just not going to happen. Do I like this hairband? Let me make sure the outline's turned on. There we go. Okay. We'll go back to her hair front. Oh, it helps if you actually start the timer too. Again, don't commit to finishing something. Just commit to doing highly focused work. And I am listening to All Fired Up by Pat Benatar right now. Okay. Let's sample her hair again. And it's okay if the front overlaps a bit. And what we're going to do, we're going to give Leslie a little trail of hair along the side. But otherwise, her hair is going to be tucked very closely in front. And the one on the right side here is not going to be quite so pronounced. A little asymmetry is good. Ugh, gotta remember to turn. I'll stroke back on for this part. And we're going to do these individually. And since her hairband kind of tugs at her hair fairly tightly, we're going to leave these two spots here as peaks. let's render that here. See how happy we are with her so far. Not bad. All right. Enable masking. Exclude strokes. Okay. So the very front edge of her hair, I should have kept her old hair just to, that's not a good sample. There we go. Dark section. So the area where her hair meets her head is going to have a very narrow dark section. And we want the stroke turned off from that. Okay, that's pretty good. And for the top, we're going to remove a couple of lines on her outline here. And that's because the top of her head, where it meets the headband, should have some highlight. So we'll go back to our high darks. We'll sample the color. I'm now listening to Pat Benatar's La Belle Age, which is an excellent song. You want to be careful not to make it too close to her skin tone. You know, keep a little color in there. And once again, this is a very narrow edge where her hair meets the headband. Oh, that's split. Let's put those back together again. Make sure you have the right tool selected, Dave. Yeah, stroke off for this because we're doing shading. Round that off. Because you're kind of following the contour of the headband. All right, quick render. Pretty good, pretty good. All right, now I've decided that we're not going to give Leslie ears. So instead, we're going to give her a mass of hair on the side of her head. This goes in front of her face, but behind her headband. One of the things that I do love about the Hot Fuzz characters is that since many of the women have relatively short hair and short hairstyles, Leslie's hair curls inward slightly. There we go. Thin that out just a little bit. As I was saying, since most of the women have short hair, one of the complications when doing a Moho character is that let's see, do we like this? Yeah, we like this. Okay. Do we want to make this a full-on group layer though? No, since we know these areas around here are going to be the ones expanding as she turns her head, we add a couple of extra points so that we can reshape it as she turns her head. Let's also change this name to hair left outline. No, let's not do shading for the sides or front or back. All right, so let's replicate this to hair right. Give it a useful center point, like right there. We flip that around for the right side. Now, when I finalize her face, one of the things I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to enable shadows on the hair top and hair sides so that it will actually kind of outline her face a bit more. But that's something that Moho can do in the software. All right, let me move Leslie's photo over just a little bit. And again, the goal is not to replicate Leslie, it's to, or the actress and Reid, but to, let's tweak this. The perfection is in the imperfection. Give her slight differences between the left and right side. Let's move that out a little bit. There we go. All right, and her last hair layer is going to extend above the hairband. And we actually want to make, let's not make this any darker. Well, let's make it a little bit darker, but not as dark as the shaded areas. So let's see. All right, I got Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks going on here. Just a little bit darker to kind of help differentiate the layers a bit more. Okay. So the back of her hair will extend above the hairband, but behind the sides, and also it can curve, you know, kind of outward. I like to put these little splits here and there in the hair. It's a bit of an anime affectation. I hate drawing hair so much. So it goes behind the sides, but above the front. All right, let's round it out. And it doesn't. You don't want hair to be symmetrical. No one's hair is perfectly symmetrical unless you're willfully drawing an android character, in which case make them as symmetric as you like. Let's render that. That's pretty good. All right, now for this back layer, we are going to do shading on this. So group width selection again. Put hair back, and we're going to change the name of this one to hair back outline. And the area where, let's see, the area where her hair meets the headband should be slightly darker. Oh, I'm drawing on the wrong surface. Add a new layer, vector, here we go. High darks. Okay, that's better. We won't need strokes on the highlights. Round it off a bit. I also want to let's fiddle with the outside corners of hair. I like to trim back a bit on the points, so it doesn't distract you from the outline itself. Hair color is kind of an interesting thing in cartoons. I'm a big fan of gargoyles, and so I always thought it was interesting that they gave Elisa Maza blue hair, even though her mother and her father and her brother all have black hair, and her sister, her younger sister, all have black hair. And that's actually something that happened again in BoJack Horseman. Part of it, I think, is just to keep especially for a show that takes place at night like Gargoyles does, is to kind of keep Elisa's hair from disappearing into the background too easily. But also just to keep the hair from causing her outlines to disappear. Because if a character has black hair, and for example, if they wear glasses or something like that, the outline of the glasses will disappear, will match the black hair. Not bad, not bad. Let's make the highlight a little bit thicker here. Oh, the other problem is I haven't turned on blur radius. There we go. That's pretty good. Adds a bit of shading to her hair. And one other area where I'm going to do some dark lights is at the base of her hair to kind of give the appearance of curving outward. So let's sample our dark color. And let's turn stroke off again. And you don't have to match the little chevrons or anything for this part. Boom. Not bad. I can't even decide if I want to add a little forehead definition. All right, let's save this. Now, we're going to save it a second time. The face drawing is done. We're going to call this Leslie Taylor B. B is the first layer, this is the first save where I start introducing bones. And what we're going to do is I actually have a default Moho bone face that I like to use. It's not generic face. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Standard face rig 1. All right, let's maneuver this. A little bit closer. Now, none of these bones do anything yet, but they are all smart bones, and they do all have a weight of 0, and they are all tied to this root bone down here. All right. And we drop her into the standard face rig, and we change the name of the standard face rig to Leslie Face 12. And we call it Leslie Face 12 because the default pose for it is at the 12 o'clock front-facing position. All right, so let's tie her to some of these actions. Obviously, nothing is going to be tied to root. Now, another thing you want to notice about these bones is these are all done in lowercase and with lots of abbreviations. The reason I do this is because this is going to be a sub-layer of her overall body. And if you make a smart bone on a lower layer with the same name as a smart bone on an upper layer, it will cause very serious errors, and it can actually cause Moho to break. So don't do that. But before we begin, let's do a little shadow work. I like, for my characters, do an offset of 10, a blur of 2, clip the shadow to group. That restricts it to just other parts of the group. And for the front of her hair, we're going to do 270. All right, let's take a look at that. And her hair now has a little more depth. All right, let's add some to the left and the right. These I don't think have to go quite as deep. You can also give your shadows weird colors too if you want. I'm gonna, instead of 270, we're gonna make this 290. Did I do the right one? Here, right? Yeah, that should be right. Okay, yeah, it's starting to outline her face. Looks good, looks good. Shadows on 8 and 2, clip to group. And this one we're going to 250. For some weird reason, south is 270 in Moho, which is just frustrating to me. All right, save that. And let's see what she looks like with all of her shadows turned on. Pretty good, actually. This is pretty good. You can see a little bit of light peeking through here. So let's include her hairband in the upper shadow. That should correct that. 12, 2, shadow to group, 270. There we go. Dark all the way through. All right. Now, let's make these bones do something. These three up here, expressions, lip sync, and mouth bone controls, those are all tied to mouth 1, which is down here. All right. The checklist for bones. Number 1, make sure the bone you want to use is selected. Number 2, make sure the selection tool is selected. Number 3, make sure that the layer with that bone is selected before you hit this button for new action. If any one of those three things is off, you're going to get a red morph action instead of a blue smart bone action. So we hit this, the timeline turns blue to indicate we are now doing a smart bone action. And this is preset to only go down 15 degrees. This is going to be for her lower eyelids. So step 1, move the timeline. Step 2, move the bone to the position you want. And step 3 is adjust things, in this case, the eyelids. So this smart bone movement is going to cause her eyes to widen a bit. And this is going to be useful later in the movie when she's being murdered. Spoilers. Let's not take her outside eye quite so far. When you're done adjusting the smart bone, double click on main timeline. Let's test this out. Go to the layer with the bone. Zip, 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 zip. Okay. Now let's make it go up. Selection tool, lower eyelids selected, Leslie face 12 selected. Click new action. I should say lower eyelids 12. The timeline turns blue to indicate we are doing a smart bone action. 15 degrees, since that's what I've got the bone set for anyway. We move it up. Go back to her lower eyelids. And this is going to make her eyes curl up, kind of like if she's laughing or something. Or if one of her eyes just twitches. Nick's eyes twitch a lot. This is kind of her smile eyes, is what this smart bone movement would do. Back to main timeline, double click on main timeline, go to Leslie face 12, hit the manipulate button, and we're going to go up, down to test the bone. Looks good. Let's do the upper eyelids. Selected, Leslie face 12, new layer, and 15. We're going to go 30 degrees because this is going to be the move that makes your eyes. You notice I've already got these set for 15 and 30. So blop, down we go. This is going to close her eyes. Now the best thing about manipulations like this is that the points will not auto snap, and before you go away from the timeline here, you can also just drag this to test the move. That looks good. Double click on main timeline, go back to Leslie's face, go back to select this button, upper eyelids 2. Now we're going up 15 degrees, and again this is for like if she's being surprised. Go back to her eyelids. This is a surprised Leslie. Go back to Leslie's face. And we can start testing the eyes together. We can do cheery. We can go kind of a bemused shaded sort of look. What are you talking about, Cousin Sissy? All right. Now, eyebrows up and down. This is set for -15, +15. Selection tool, face, eyes up, down 2. Hit enter to establish the name. 15 degrees, and we start with down. Go to her eyebrows. And this is pretty simple. I like to just select the whole chunk in the middle, and another chunk of the middle, and bring that down. This is a very angry Leslie. Go back up to the main timeline, go back to her face, and we can test. Nice. We could even take this a step further and move the shading around her eyes as well. In fact, just for fun, we're going to do just that. Go back to 15 degrees, go to her face outline and her shading of her face outline, and we're going to drop those two down. Just for fun. Leslie has something unique to her face. All right, now we need to do the eyebrows going up. Selection tool, bone selected, bone layer selected, new action. Press enter to name it. 15 degrees, move the bone, and now we move the eyebrows up. A little bit for all 8 points, and now a lot for the center points. And this is a very worried Leslie. Test it out. Now I'm listening to Jefferson Starship. This is a worried laugh Leslie. This is an angry, bemused Leslie. You know, we could even go down to her mouth and give her a sneer. All right, we got every bone should have 2. There is an exception. If a bone only moves in one direction, then it only needs 1 smart bone action. But if it's bidirectional, it needs 2 smart bone actions, 1 for each. All right. Now for eyes up, down. Selected, selected, selected. New. Press enter to name it. And these go 30 degrees each way. You can see here. We start with a down move. And what's neat is if you hold down the control, you can select more than 1 layer at the same time and hit Z to manipulate and drop them both at the same time. And now you know they've moved the same amount. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to move the centers. I like the centers to be as close to the actual center of the layer as I can. All right. Let's do another smart bone here. Eyes up, down 2. 30 degrees going up. Iris, control click for the second iris. And now move the layers up. This is the layer move button over here. Or transform layer, I should say. All right, let's test the bone out. There is a unique mathematical property associated with choosing 30 degrees, which I'll go into in another video sometime because it's pretty elaborate. All right, eyes left, right. This one's pretty easy too. Once again, adjust the timeline first, bone second, layers and points third. Do a bone without commentary, 30 degrees. All right, let's test these out, left and right. You notice the reflection stays in the same place, which is kind of what you want it to do. Leslie is investigating something. She sees something on the floor that is... And now she looks up at the person that she thinks is guilty. All right, but you didn't come here to see me move eyebrows and stuff like that. You probably came here to see me deform a face, but I've got 30 seconds left on this Pomodoro. We've literally only been working on Leslie for 50 minutes. So I'm going to reset this now, take a quick break. I will come back, and we are going to definitely get Leslie's face to go up and down, but I'm hoping to at least partially get her face to go left and right. So see you in a second. All right, I am back. Just finishing up with Jefferson Starship here. I am barely halfway through my wine, and it's only a half a glass at that. But let's get to the part that you all came for, which is getting the face to go up and down and left and right. Now these bones are already set for 30 degrees. We're going to start with up and down. That is the easier of the two. And we'll start with the face dropping down here. All right, the first thing I like to do, first let's minimize a lot of these. All right, so the eyebrows, hold down control to select more than one layer. Nose, right eye, left eye, mouth. These can all just be dropped down a little bit. Not a lot, like maybe half of an eye height to here. And this provides us with the guidance that we need in order to do the rest of her face. So for starters, her hair back just goes up a little bit because that's just the back of her head. But we are going to move the highlights and the dark lights. So let's take the highlights, the dark lights, drop those down. And we're going to take the highlights and we're going to make those a little more pronounced. Right, so that layer's done. The hair left and hair right, I think those are going to drop down a little bit. Not a lot. And of course this means we have to adjust the dark lights of the back hair a bit. Now, one of the most important things to remember when you're doing manipulations like this is that the character is not going, these lines are not going to follow the curves that you draw. They're going to move linearly from point 0 to point 30. All right, so let's do her hair front. Let's drop her hairband layer down just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Actually, that would actually go up now that I think about it, because it becomes more pronounced as she's tilting her head forward. All right, but now her hair front drops a little bit, but it also thickens, I would say. So let's select the whole thing and thicken it a little bit, and let's test this movement. Not bad, not bad. Hair left and right, I think the tops are going to stay fairly high. Now the bottoms will still drop, but I want the tops to stay relatively high. All right, let's follow that. That's better. Now let's do the shading for the hair in front. Make sure we're not seeing... So we would definitely get less dark. Not a lot less, but just a little less. We're already getting that because of just, we moved the hair, but not the shaders of it. Let's run through this. All right, I like what's happening to her hair. All right, last but not, and most importantly, really, we need to move the shaders of her face. Nose, cheekbones, eyes, these can all be moved at once. This will get a little bit thinner, I think. Now, when a person looks down, their chin gets a little bit wider. Not a lot, just a little bit. And the shading becomes, oops, didn't want to move that, more pronounced. So let's move the shading in just a tad bit. Top actually becomes less pronounced. Now Moho will automatically add some shading because her hair, the top of her hair gets thicker. So let's roll through this. I'm pretty happy with that. Generally people don't look up and down a ton in my episodes. All right, let's do the other half. That was 5 minutes, not bad. Let's do the other half. Face up and down 2, take it over to 30, move the smartphone, and once again we start with her. Let's close these just so they're out of the way. Eyebrows, nose, right eye, left eye, mouth, and we move them all upward about half of an eye height. All right, next. What do we want to manipulate next? Let's start with the hair front. So that's going to get narrower because she's looking up. And let's move the hair front overall up a little bit too. Not a lot, just a little bit. Let's move this. Let's see if we're... I think the point movement on the front highlight dark is too pronounced. Let's just leave that as it is. The hair back just goes down, like so. All right, hair left. The hair band will drop a little bit as it goes out of sight. Hair left, the top will go down, but the bottom of these hair left and hair right will go up. I need to restart my playlist. And we just manipulate the timeline to see how we're doing. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's move the face shading. So for the face outline, when a person looks up, their chin will go up a little bit, and also their jawline will narrow. So let's manipulate the shading. And we're going to make that spot smaller. And since the face moved inward, we don't really need to move the shading along with it. So let's go up to back up to Leslie face and see how much we like this. I like this pretty well, actually. All right. So let's save this again. Now for the tough one, face left, right. I like to start with the face turning to the right. All right. When doing a face rotation, I like to start with the nose as well. So let's take this nose and move it over so that it overlaps part of the eye. And this will provide us with a guideline for moving everything else, including the eyes, the mouth, the eyebrows, and from those we can move the shading, manipulate the shape of the face, then manipulate the shape of the hair. So like I said, we start with the eyebrows. Let's adjust the nose outline. The bump of the nose favors forward. And lines are manipulatable in the timeline here, so let's check that movement. Okay, the bottom of the nose doesn't go up too much. Now for the high darks, blip. We just move that forward like that. And we move that forward like that. And that is a nose rotating. I decided not to give those the nostrils. All right, we're done with the nose. Let's do the eyes, starting with the right eye. You still want a little bit of overlap, and in addition, you want to shrink the eye just a little bit. And now the left eye. Slightly more pronounced move. Let's check that. Do we like that? I think we do. Now, here's my favorite trick. Zoom in on your eyes, left and right. Go to the iris and manipulate your line width so that the outer edge is thicker. And see what this does is it creates the impression that the iris itself has rotated, because the front of the iris is its own curvature. Eyes are done. We're trucking along. Since we know how the eyes are positioned, now we can move the eyebrows. First moving the whole layer, and we just make the right eyebrow smaller. Now since we know where the nose goes, we can figure out where the lips go. Lips, of course, go directly under the eyes. And we have this mouth rotate bone. I may do a completely different video on that sometime for y'all. All right, next, the face outline itself. The base of the chin goes in underneath the mouth. Bring in the right side of the face just a little bit. Now, whenever possible, move these points only left and right. We don't really need the back of her skull, but I like it as a guideline for her hair. All right, let's do the shading. Starting with we're going to turn on lasso mode here so we only get the points that we actually want. This side gets thinner. Let's move the left shader or the right shader completely off. Let's get her cheekbone in the right place. Make sure that there's enough shader to cover her face. Let's see how much we like the look of that. Go back. Pretty good, pretty good. A proper face rotation is very hard to do in 2D, so I don't do it very often. All right, let's start with her hair front. Hair front outline. Going to select these points. These points are going to move just straight to the right. These points not quite so much. Now, since she's turned to the right, her right side is going to lose some of its highlight. That's okay, though. Oh boy, this is a lot of points to move. Probably more than I really needed. But it'll expand to the right. So let's make that a little bit thicker. Now her hairband itself. Oops. Let's do a selection like this. Zoop. But also move. Select these points. And let's make a little more of that front hair disappear. And move her widow's peak more forward. That's pretty good. It's okay if you can see the hairband like this, but now let's check how that manipulation looks. That's nice. I like that. All right. Hair left. This will thicken. In both directions. Maybe not quite so much. Let's pull it in a bit. Now, this is always tricky. I dislike using animated layer order with smartbones, but since for depth sort, but since it's only being used on 2 layers and 1 in each direction, I'm okay with it. So, and this is for her right side hair. Because as she initially starts to turn her head, what's going to happen is the hair is briefly going to go out, like to right there. I'm going to go forward 1 spot, and now the right side hair is going to go behind her face. Blip, like that. And now her right side hair remains on the back of her face, like it should. I use a similar technique. Well, no, I should say I use a completely different technique for doing ears. For doing ears, I like to do 2 separate layers, 1 visible, 1 invisible. And while I'm talking, let's work on her hair back. And once the straight move may work pretty well for that. Let's take a look. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Blip. like that. I like that. We're going to adjust the high darks, though. Because as with the top, the high darks should favor a more forward position. Thinner near the front, thicker near the back. Zoop, zoop. And now Leslie's face can turn. All right, let's save that. Now, one thing I'm going to do, and this is a little shortcut to kind of help make your face turn symmetric. Going to do a render with her turn to the right. PNG. Leslie to right. And now, I don't think we need her older images anymore, and I don't need this anymore either. We import that image that we just made. Crop it out, and now we can use that rotation as a reference to build our left turn rotation. I really wish Moho had like an equal and opposite feature. Voila. Before I go too far though, one thing I think I want to change. Let me delete these to the actual timeline. I think I want her hair to be, especially the back of her hair, to bulge outward, hair back. Yes, she turns. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. I won't need that part as a reference. I've got 6 minutes left in this Pomodoro. Right. 30. Oh. Pow. That's the most important thing. Shoot. Now it's a reference. We'll see how much of this I can get done. Start with the nose, of course. If I suddenly become quiet, I apologize. It is because I'm very focused right now. I really want to get this done. That stays, that goes to make her nose a little more rounded. That forward. Drop that line down a bit. I just want a little more curve, I think. High darks. Move that forward. Move that forward. Nose is done. Left eye. That over. You still want a little bit of overlap. Shrink it down just a hair. Right eye. Slide over. Adjust our irises. Shrink, grow, shrink, grow. Mouth, rotate to right, move layer over. Eyebrows, move over to right, shrink right side. Go. Face outline. Chin moves over. Pull right side back a little bit. Back of her head swells a bit, but jawline moves forward. Shading. This shrinks. That shrinks a bit. shrinks a bit. Move the nose shading over. Chin shading over. Left side shading moves off. Right side shading expands. Hair top, or hair front rather, hair front outline. Strand narrows and probably shrinks a bit. Widow's peak. I'm doing this straight by points. I don't always have to do it this way, but just sometimes it's faster. Front edges shrink, but back edges expand. There we go. Listening to Yoko Kanno. Left eye, mouth, hair right, hair left. Not quite so much. That's hair right, hair left. Face. And now zoop. Maybe not quite that far. Zoop. There we are. All right, now hair back. Hair back outline. You know, as I recall, we just moved the whole hair back like this. And then expanded the back edge of it. Like this. And then adjusted the high darks to match. And boom, it's 25 minutes. Let's see how this rotation looks. Pretty happy with it. Let's get a little more fullness on the back of the head. Let's add a little curvature going to the back too. That's it. That's Leslie Tiller's face in 75 minutes. So Pomodoro, once again, 25 minutes of focused work, no specific goal. The only goal you set for yourself is that you focus on your work, no distractions, no fiddling with a playlist, no watching TV. Drinks are good, foods are bad. Don't eat food while you're sitting at a computer. That's a great way to get fat. Again, don't use a playlist that you have to constantly adjust. Commit to those 25 minutes to doing work. You know, do a tutorial that you see online, follow that as closely as you can, experiment with color, experiment with shading, experiment with outlines. Whatever you can do in 25 minutes, then 5-minute break, run to the restroom, refill your drink, fiddle with your playlist, stretch your legs, stretch your back on it for another 25. You know, do 3 sets of those. It's just amazing what you can get done in 90 minutes. Leslie's face is done. I'm actually pretty impressed with this. I could probably get her body done tomorrow night. Now, I probably still can't get her done in time to do the video for this Saturday because I also need to make a a new body for Seymour Skinner, or not Seymour Skinner, for Simon Skinner, because he's not going to run around in his booty shorts for the whole movie. That being said, yeah, I'm really satisfied with this. I'm gonna save this as B, and also again save as Leslie Tiller C, because when I start on it again tomorrow night, I'm gonna start adding like her neck and her body parts and all that fun stuff. So I save that as a different version. If that version gets corrupted, at least I have a working face. Let's have some fun with Leslie's face here, just for giggles. So now that we have Leslie's face done, there are all kinds of things that we can do with it. It can look down, we can do the eyes down. She will look like she's looking down at something sadly. Okay, just her mouth. And see, now it looks like she's really looking down surprised. So now we have a very manipulatable face that can do all kinds of amazing expressions. And it is great. I hit save one more time just to be on the safe side. That's it for this video. I know I move really quick and it's a little tough to follow me along sometimes, but that's kind of the point you need to get to if you're going to start producing lots and lots of material. Thank you for watching though, and hopefully this next video, which is like the first video with all of the NWA characters in a single scene, hopefully I will have that done in 1 week. Because once Leslie and Skinner are done, that's pretty much most of the NWA. I still haven't done Lurch. I have plans for Lurch. It'll be good, I promise. But that is that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.